Hello y'all, welcome back to Case Can Probably Read. My name is Casey, and that is a promise. Let's talk about what I read this week. The first book that I read this week was Whiskey and Rye by Rhys. This is the second one in the Sinners series, which I started earlier this month. The first one is called Sinner's Gin. This one follows a new character, and I don't really want to tell too much about it. This might be a little bit of a spoiler. It's a character that you thought was dead in the first book. And so in the second book, you pleasantly find out that they are not dead. I am really getting addicted to this series. There's an Irish family that lives in San Francisco who is introduced in the first one, and one of the sons of this family is a member of the romance in the first book, and this second book follows one of the cousins of this that are part of this family. And I've read that one, and it was good. I really liked it. I actually am working on the third one right now. Haven't quite finished it yet, but it's also really good. There's a lot of hurt comfort themes in it, and for some reason that has just been a thing that I've been craving to read lately, and so it's really good. It's still gritty, still graphic, but the next book that I read was Worth the Wait by Isabel Murray. I just discovered Isabel Murray this month. I read 2 of her books earlier this month, and this one is kind of a shorter, it's like a novella. It's a romantic comedy just like the other 2 were. The meet cute is very sudden and abrupt and a little gross. Gosh, I love Isabel Murray. I just am really excited that I found her. It's if you're looking for something that's short and cute and romantic comedy-esque, then definitely pick this one up. It's on Kindle Unlimited. I liked it so much that I'm trying to spread out my Isabel Murray books right now so that I don't read them all at once and then run out of stuff to read. So I'm reading this one, and then I've got a couple others that I'm saving for later. But Isabel Murray is great. The next book that I read was A Beginner's Guide to Death, Demons, and Other Afterlife Disasters by Shannon May. I guess this is part of a series called Demonic Disasters and Afterlife Adventures. And so this one's the first one. I picked this one up because I thought it might be a little bit like the AJ Sherwood books that I had been reading, the serial style books. And I gotta stop doing that because that is causing disappointment in my life, and it's not really something I can afford. Basically, the premise of this book is you have a main character named Adam. He comes home. I think he finds out his boyfriend's having an affair. So he leaves him in a dramatic exit, packs his stuff, and gets in the car and drives away. And then he promptly dies like in a fiery car crash and ends up in the afterlife. He's sent to the heaven part of the afterlife, but he finds it boring. He somehow ends up in the judgment part of the afterlife, and he meets Minos, who is the judge of the damned. They instantly fall in love, and a plot unfolds. I know there was a plot conflict. I can't remember exactly what it was. It was there. This book took me a long time to read. I know I started it. This one I might have started like 2 months ago. And I really thought that the premise, the blurb that I read sounded super cool, and that is why I picked it up. But as far as delivering, it delivers on what it said the premise was, but I just didn't end up loving it. I don't think I liked the writing style very much in this one, and I didn't really particularly like the character voices, particularly Adam's. I think there is an audience for this book, it just wasn't me. The next book that I read was The Loathed Omega by Kay Worthy, and it says that this is The Omegas of Winsley Book 1. So there's an assumption there that this will be a series, or at least there will be more books, at least one more book. I started a series earlier this month by Elsie Davis, and I'm going to talk about one of those books here in just a minute. But the series made me realize that I really don't have a great grasp of what Omegaverse fiction is and what shifter romance is and what they have to do with each other. There's just a lot I don't understand about what you can and can't do in Omegaverse and shifter romance. So I was trying to read some more books in those categories that would help me to understand. This one fell under that. It is an Omegaverse romance, but it is a non-shifter romance. So in the book, I do recall the characters sometimes talking about their inner animal reacting to each other, but they're not actually shifters of any kind, not wolf shifters or animal shifters. So this one was also a fated mates romance, and I'm also not sure if that is a thing that's always present in Omegaverse fiction. I have only read maybe 2 or 3 other Omegaverse ones besides the ones that I've talked about this month, and I can't remember if they were fated mate romances or not. I'd have to go back and look at them. The 2 main characters are 2 18-year-olds named Jackson and Eli. They go to the same private schools. Their dads are both alphas who are really good business friends, and they're the upper crust of this society, which is the reason that they're at this private school. They can't stand each other. Mostly it's Jackson who is the alpha of this pair. He can't stand Eli because for some reason he has a physical reaction to him whenever he gets around. I mean, he has since he was a young teenager, like 13 years old. At the beginning of the story, they find out that their fathers have arranged a marriage between them, and they're both very upset about this because they can't stand to be around each other. Of course, that turns out okay. It is what you would consider a bully romance, because in the very beginning of the book, you do see Jackson mistreating Eli, and there's an explained history of bullying. So that is a trope here, but it ends pretty quickly in the beginning of the book, and we get straight into the romance. There's not a ton of bullying shown. It was interesting. I did learn some more about what makes something Omegaverse and a little bit more about non-shifter Omegaverse. I guess I haven't read that much non-shifter Omegaverse stuff. So it was a neat little story. There's a second one that's supposed to come out. I'm not sure when, and depending on what I'm reading at the time or how I'm feeling, I will look into that one. This one also had some hurt comfort themes in it. Like I said earlier, I've been really into hurt comfort stuff lately, and this had quite a bit of that, so it did scratch that itch. And continuing in that Omegaverse vein, the next book I read was The Alpha and His King by Kiki Clark. This is the Kincaid Pack book 1, and I think all of the pieces of this series have already been released, and I think there's 6 or 7 books in this series. This is shifter romance. It follows an alpha named Rick. He's the head of this pack, I think in Michigan somewhere, that includes kind of a mishmash of people, including wolf shifters, bird shifters, panther shifters, bear shifters, and then a bunch of witches and others. So he's the head of this pack. The story starts when he meets Kai and his siblings, his younger siblings, who have been locked in a shed and mistreated by their parents. Kai is 18. Him and his siblings are all half shifter. So their dad was a wolf shifter and their mom was fully human. So there's some prejudices that they've dealt with in the past that have to do with their blood status. And this is a romance between Kai and Rick. This one wasn't as hard to read as some of the other books that I've read this month. I got through it in a timely manner. I didn't ever hit a spot where I wanted to stop reading. But at the end of it, I don't know that I really want to keep going in this series. I liked it, but after looking at the rest of the books in the series and seeing how long it is, it's about 6 or 7 books, I don't know if I'm drawn in enough or committed enough to this story to want to keep reading. I did go ahead and check out the second book. So if I start that one and it just really takes off for me, then I might finish this series. But as it stands right now, it's kind of could go either way. The next book I read, the reason that I started all of this Omegaverse business, was Bro and the Beast book 3, which is part of the Wolf's Mate series by L.C. Davis. And I am hooked on this. These are short stories. They are Omegaverse wolf shifter stories. But I think the thing that I like about them, once again, I don't really know enough about this concept of fiction to know what's par for the course and what's not. But I get the sense in these stories that the author is making light or poking fun at some of the common tropes that are in shifter romances, or, you know, Omegaverse shifter romances. And I kind of like that. I like that it doesn't seem to take itself too seriously. It doesn't seem to be making a grand statement, which is something I was confused about at the beginning of the story. I was wondering if the author was trying to get a deeper meaning across. And I think the author is just having fun playing with some trope subversion. So I'm hooked on this series. This is the third one. I know there's going to be at least one more. I think it's releasing later this summer, maybe in June or July. And I am here for it. I'm going to read it. And the last book that I read this month was Origin by Jocelynn Drake and A.J. Sherwood. It is the Scales and Spells book 1. Again, I don't know how many books are in this series, but I know it's at least 5. I've already talked about Origin. I talked about it in my Asian readathon wrap-up. I was really sad that I didn't like this book more than I did, but after having sat a couple of days after reading it, I think I can appreciate the story for what it was. And I would like to at least attempt the second book in the series to just see if there's something there, because I feel like a lot of the reason that I didn't click or connect with this book was because of where my head was at the time. So I really want to give it, you know, the old college try to make sure that it's not something that I'm going to fall in love with. If you are interested in lighthearted fantasy, romance, adventure, then these are cute. This was a cute book. So I just really don't want to poo-poo on it yet. I want to reserve my judgment and go a little further with this series to deliver a more full opinion before I say, nah, don't waste your time, or yeah, go for it. So that is all. Let's see, how many books was that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I read 7 books this week. That is pretty good. I don't know where that puts me at for the month of May. I do think I'm gonna try and do a reading wrap up for the month of May. A little bit different since I've been doing the weekly wrap ups. I don't think I'll talk so much about the individual books. I really just will kind of hit the highlights of how many books I read, some stats, what my hits and misses were. That's the plan. Again, keep your expectations low. That's all I have for you today. If my brand of awkward appeals to you, please feel free to like this video, subscribe to my channel, or follow me on social media, which I will list below. And until next time, I know this is a long shot, but if anybody out there happening to watch this video has a more thorough understanding of the Omegaverse and shifter fiction, A, explain it to me, or B, give me a couple of book recommendations that you really like that will help me understand this genre a little bit better. Please. Bye.